Welcome to the Innovia Consulting webinar series on demand. Scan the QR code or visit innovia.com/resources to check out the latest Business Central news and training for your business. This session is powered by UST Education. UST Education provides over 200 webinars a year for associations and B2B clients. The webinars are always led by thought leaders and offer CE credits.
Deb Adler, a Customer Success Manager here at Innovia Consulting. Innovia Consulting is a Microsoft partner with at least 35 years of experience doing consulting, implementing, and supporting Microsoft Dynamics NAV, which is the older version of Microsoft Dynamics Business Central, Power BI, Microsoft 365 products, Azure, pretty much most things Microsoft. I've been with Innovia for 3 years, and before that, I worked at an ISV in the Microsoft NAV/Business Central space for about 12 years. And I've also worked as an end user, so my perspective is a little well-rounded. I started using Microsoft Dynamics. At that time, it was called Navision. Then it went to NAV. And I started my first job using Navision in 1995 when I was very young, obviously. But during today's session, we're going to review AppSource, as I said, and my goal would be to provide some helpful tips and resources to make sure that you are finding the right app for your business needs. We're going to look at AppSource, the site, and hopefully by the time we're done, you're going to feel better equipped to choose the solid apps, all the different resources available to you, and things to take a closer look at when you are browsing the website. So before we get started, let's throw out one more question. How many of you have ever checked out AppSource? And a reminder, just put that in the chat. Looks like we're getting some answers coming in. Whoops. All right, so it looks like we've got a well-educated group here. We're going to keep moving on, and then hopefully maybe you'll learn some new things today that we're going to look at. Okay, so AppSource. It is an online marketplace. I think it's a pretty exciting site if you know what you're looking for. There are literally thousands of solutions specifically designed to enhance either your ERP software. Today, we are focusing on Business Central for the ERP solution, but there are others, and other Microsoft products. So usually you would look into these apps if there's some functionality you need that doesn't come out of the box with your ERP solution, or you're just looking to add some additional features and functionality that maybe you didn't know you needed, but you actually discovered you want. Before Business Central and AppSource, that used to be that your partner would have to write custom code to get you added functionality, and that can be done. Sometimes it can get costly. While we still need to do that in some cases, these apps do reduce the need for a lot of customizations, and that's a good thing to keep your database up to date without any hiccups. So don't assume that you wouldn't have any mods, but it should significantly reduce what you need. There seems to be apps to meet a lot of different requirements. These apps are very easy to download, sometimes a little too easy, into your Business Central environment from the Microsoft Cloud. But it does give you access to the latest technologies, a lot of tools designed to save time and money, streamlining your business processes, or even give you access to additional data to help you manage your business, with better information. I think one of the strong points is that by running on the cloud, and that includes all these apps, you're able to always be on the latest version, not just of your ERP, but of the apps. So as you may know, Microsoft pushes 2 major releases every year called wave releases. And anybody with an app on AppSource has to make sure that their app is going to work when those updates push. So before Microsoft releases the apps on AppSource, They distribute the new code to all the vendors that have apps, and the vendors need to recertify to make sure that the apps still work. Is it 100%? No. Sometimes there's still a little work to be done, whether it's from your partner or the app vendor themselves. It could be related to other issues, like maybe customizations that you have in your system or other apps. So you can assume that sometimes there'll be some bumps, but for the most part, these apps should update fine when Microsoft pushes the release. The site's very easy to use. We're going to look at that here in a second. There are lots of filters to help you narrow down the search. And we're going to go into some of the key considerations and show you some of the highlights to look at. The one thing I always warn people, this isn't like an app on your phone. So forget about trying to count on your teenagers to help you. You might need your Microsoft partner. You might be able to do it yourself, but these are a little bit more technical. So I've got just here a little quick tour that I have recorded, and let's go ahead and get that started. So you can see on AppSource, there's a list of the 4 major platforms where there are apps. You can look by category. You can look by if there's a particular cloud service, your industry. You can do a combination of filters to really narrow down what you're looking for. Consulting services can be available here, partners that have apps. One thing I like to use is the saved items. Because of the vast amount of apps that you find, sometimes I'll see multiple apps that are interesting to me, so I like to mark those. We're going to look at Business Central apps specifically today, just for fun, and you can see that it will always show you what your filters are. There's 4,200 results that popped up, and 657 of them, they break it down for you where you might find some of that information. So I'm going to narrow it down by looking for a shipping app. And by doing that, I've now cut my number down to 351, which is still a pretty big amount. So we'll dig into this particular warehouse app. You can see it has a free trial. There's a star rating. We can see who the vendor is. I like to look and see, how much information are they providing? If it's just a few sentences about what the app does, that might make me a little more nervous. This particular vendor has gone into detail about what features and functionality you're going to get. It is a shipping solution, so there's even a link to what hardware, like the scanners, that will work with their solution, what supported versions, what countries, languages. They have published multiple apps, so that tells me that this is a vendor who is committed to the space. And you can see they've also published short videos, so you can even get a look at what the software might offer you. So those are all things that are important, and not all the apps give you that much information. This vendor actually has a rating on G2. If you've not heard of it, it's a public software rating site, which is a lot of people will go and look at. So that's sort of a nice plug that they put their review out on G2. I mean, assuming it's a good one. And they've actually gone to some effort to give us some details on their review here. Not everybody does. Some people just use the star rating, but the more information you can try to get, the better. I can see that this vendor offers a support link and help. They've got looks like a white, like a 1-sheet paper on the software. I like to look at the last date this solution was updated. When apps are updated, this is September 14th. Microsoft released the last wave in October. And again, as I mentioned, they do distribute it to the vendors first, because the vendors have to sort of go through a mini recertification every time Microsoft pushes a new update. Microsoft might have added a field, for example, that they have to now add and incorporate into their solution, or change some things around. So it has to work. And Microsoft does this to protect you as the consumer, to make sure that when the new release pushes out, everything is still in working order. If any of you are already on Business Central, you may have noticed that every now and then you'll get a message saying, we tried to push an update from Microsoft, but there was a problem. It'll tell us what the problem is, and sometimes you can fix it yourself, but oftentimes you'll go to your partner for some assistance. Sometimes the vendor themselves have to resolve it if their update, didn't work with whatever Microsoft published. So it's just another resource, another way to know that the app you're using is being kept up to date. If I see a really old date there, I may be a little concerned. It's possible that the changes Microsoft made did not impact a particular app. So again, none of these things can really be used solely to rule out an app, but they are all things to consider. I think if there's the biggest downside for me anyway, when I go into AppSource, is there are so many apps. Even when you narrow it down to a particular topic, I find myself starting to dig more and more, and I start finding more and more apps. And at some point, you have to sort of draw the line and try to pick the ones that look like the best. But in addition, we're going to talk about some other ways you can try to narrow it down. These apps sort of fill a gap, as I mentioned, that don't satisfy the out-of-the-box functionality, but you're going to start to see a lot of cool things that you didn't even know you needed, and you didn't know were even possible to do with your software. So it also is a great reason to be on a Microsoft solution, because there are so many creative people out there building these apps to add things to your business and to help you manage your business. So I'd say don't be like me, but you will end up down some rabbit holes. Okay, so we'll take a break here. Next question. Has anyone found any apps of interest that might be valuable to you to use in your business? I should grab my chat over here so I can take a look. It looks like maybe, let's see. Okay, looks like maybe some people have already started to. So finding the apps of interest is the first step. And then at that point, we're going to start doing a little more research to see if it really is the right choice. Excuse me. Okay, so how apps make it into AppSource. This is not a session about how to publish an app on AppSource. It's really to establish that not just anyone can write an app and put it out there. There is a fairly high bar. There's sort of barriers to entry to maintain the integrity of the solutions that Microsoft allows to be published on their site. I can tell you, having worked for an ISV that had apps on AppSource, the level of effort is pretty intense to get an app approved. And you go through with an auditor at Microsoft, and sometimes you have to go back multiple times if there's something they find they don't like. What they're really checking for, they're not necessarily caring about what your app does as much. You can have multiple apps out there that do the same thing. They want to make sure that your security is in place, you've met all their technical requirements, and that it works. So going through that process, you can feel comfortable that anyone on AppSource, the apps should be pretty solid. It doesn't mean that they're all the best apps, but they have met the requirements that Microsoft has. So it's just something to keep in mind. Another thing to look for is the AppSource certifications. So a publisher verification really lets you know that the Microsoft has verified that this is a legitimate publisher. If they don't have any of the other badges, it's really not the end of the world, and it doesn't mean it's a bad app. But you can see that there are some apps that get special recognition by Microsoft. So publisher verification, there's not a badge for that. So you can assume that the apps that are on there, Microsoft has verified. The Microsoft 365 certified badge, that just means it has met the AppSource criteria, that the app is compatible with Microsoft 365 products. That's your Microsoft Office and Teams and other Microsoft solutions. And then the preferred solution badge, that's kind of the big one, where it's actually a team of Microsoft experts and other partners that have published, that have the strong industry knowledge, have basically given this the seal of approval as a strong app, which could be a known vendor in the space, known that their solution is good, but it does mean that it's had a little bit closer vetting as to its functionality, not just the technical side of things. And then, of course, the Power BI certified, there are specific code standards that Microsoft requires. So on the Power BI section, when you're searching, the Power BI certified badge is a good one to find. Just a little fun fact I'm going to throw in, because doing some research, I learned some things here today. There is Microsoft Windows, there's a blog on their site that they nominate choice awards for Microsoft Store Community and Editor's Choice Awards. So they'll recognize apps that stand out. And they're not all apps that are on AppSource, but there's some pretty cool ones, and you will find some AppSource apps as well. So I thought that was a little bit fun. Okay. As I've already been indicating, not all apps are created equal. So knowing what to look for is what we're going to focus on next. So there are, as I've mentioned, there are a lot of apps. Looking at the app details, I've shown you when we looked at the example, some of the things to look for. There is also a section that the publisher of the app will make sure to list how they handle the privacy with your data. Their app is getting loaded in your system, and while it is being managed on the Microsoft cloud, and they shouldn't be getting any kind of access to your system, we do want to make sure that they have published their legal CYA to make sure that all your data is being safely handled. So that's the data privacy policies. The version updates, as I said, that's kind of a key one to watch for. If you see an app that you really like, but it's outdated, contact the vendor. You can ping them and find out what's going on. Why haven't they updated it? Are they planning to update it? It could be, like I mentioned, that they didn't need to update it for the last one. But if I see one that's, 2 waves back, like 2 updates from Microsoft, and they have not updated it, that might be a slight red flag. So there's nothing wrong with trying to contact the vendor. And actually, that's another way to vet to see, how do they get back to you. I have one of my customers wanted to look for a particular solution, found an app, asked whether I had heard of it. I tried reaching out for maybe 3 weeks to try to contact the vendor and never got a response, both through the app and on their website contact form. So I always like to take it that extra step. Go to their website. Does their website look like legit, or is there just a landing page? Does it look like they are experts in the area that they have an app? Do they have good information on their site? The links are all working? You want to make sure that these are legitimate companies. Sometimes I'll go to LinkedIn. How many people work there? If they've got 2 or 3 people and their app is on AppSource, where thousands and thousands of customers can look, I want to make sure that they can support the solution. So I might question it. Maybe when I'm talking to them, I'm going to ask, I see that on LinkedIn, there's only a few people here. How do you support your product? What are your plans? What's the roadmap? Will you be enhancing it? Will you be releasing new versions? These are all things that are important for you to know. And as I mentioned, the ability to contact a vendor, another solution that we recommend highly. This is a vendor that's not even in this country, and within minutes, no matter whatever time of day or night, they always answer. So, those are really good partners to work with. I don't know if I should take a little break here. I'll go a couple of slides, and then I think we'll take another break to see if anyone has any questions. I've talked about some of the benefits already, and one that's really important is the integration into the Microsoft ecosystem. So that is one of the things that Microsoft checks for, and that's why this AppSource is a good way to find a solution that was designed to work with whichever system you're looking at. The compliance, the security, the peer reviews, which we'll talk about a little bit more. There are some really solid free apps out there that fill that little niche spot that you can't get from Business Central. And again, I'm saying Business Central, but there are lots of choices. Most apps will offer a free trial period to play around with, see if you like it. And then, there's supporting documentation that oftentimes is a detailed user guide with screenshots. I mean, all those things are really good to have. On the other side of that, there are some limitations to be aware of. The integration is probably the biggest challenge that we see. If a customer has an environment, a database of nothing's been done to it, it hasn't been customized, there are no other apps, the chances are good that the app they like is going to work. But if they have even any modifications or other apps, there are some integration issues that have to be addressed. One example could be a payment solution and a tax add-on. So, those both have to do with collecting funds, and so they might bump into each other. That doesn't mean they won't work together, but it does mean it could involve a little effort from either the app vendor or your partner or a combination thereof to get these codes, integrated to a way that they would work. When Microsoft does their certification, it's just in a brand new database that's clean, no mods, no other apps. So as soon as you start adding things, as you can imagine, it can start to build up. One example I have of that actually, and this isn't so much integrating, but just a limitation. A customer found an app that added fields to anywhere, a customer card, an inventory card in Business Central. And it was perfect because there's some data they wanted to collect that wasn't readily available out of the box. But the second piece of that was, which we had to do some thorough testing on, is just because we add an app, does that mean the data is going to show up where they want it? Is it going to show on whatever reports they needed to run? And fortunately, it turned out that we were able to get that to work. But you should never assume it's a given just because it sounds really good, on the page. So that's just a sort of a real life situation we did run into not very long ago. The cost you can run into, again, when you need to involve your partner or possibly the vendor to do some additional development to get these things to work together. And then you also want to know about the support. Is your partner going to support it? The vendor, a combination thereof. The quality of the solution, the better the solution, the less support, in theory, you should need. Okay, testing, as you know, with all things, regardless of whether we're putting something into Excel or we're putting this into Business Central, make sure that you test the solution. You want to have a sandbox environment that is refreshed, so it's exactly the same version as your production, your live environment. And again, I'm just making a reference to Business Central here, but any ERP system. You want to make sure that you go through your normal processes. I mean, if you've ever implemented anything with a partner, there's always user testing that's required, and this is the reason for it. It could work independently great, but you want to make sure it works with everything you've got going on in your system. If you do need to get support, reporting it properly, getting screenshots, how did you get to that issue, retest it once it's been fixed. You want to make sure that you have gone through this process before you decide to make this part of running your business with your ERP. Okay, I know I've been talking a lot here. We'll take a little break. Has anyone successfully installed and are using any of the apps from AppSource? Let's see what we're getting here. Anybody have any responses? Give people a minute. All right. So maybe once we're finished today's session, you'll be better equipped to figure out which apps are going to work for you. All right. Let's keep moving. So this is where, and I've referenced this multiple times, but to dig in a little bit where your Microsoft partner can help. First of all, your partner should know your business, understand your business requirements, how you do business, any conversations we've had about what your needs are. They know how your current system is set up. And again, I'm referring to Business Central and your ERP system, but this could be the case with a Power BI solution or any kind of cloud solution or integration. So there are a lot of things that can fall into this category. So there are, a lot of options and a lot of different configurations. I don't know if any two Business Central implementations are identical. So the partner can offer both the knowledge of your system, the expertise of the software itself, and also it should have a solid, financial or operations background where understanding the implications of what an app might add. Additionally, and even here, and I'm sure every partner, there are some solutions that rate pretty highly amongst the partner community and get used fairly often. So being able to see whether your partner has implemented this or heard of this solution. And then maybe the partner has some insight into particular vendors. They know that they are struggling, or they know that they have a huge support team. So, take advantage of the information that your partner can add, because there can be a lot of insight behind the scenes that you might not have access to. That is how we actually decide, which solutions we might recommend to a customer. And we also always, I should add, we as a partner, and I'm sure all partners would always welcome feedback. The reviews and the ratings on AppSource are really important to do, because that just helps everyone who's ever looking after you. So connecting with your peers, many of you may have already heard there are some user group communities here. Innovia works closely with the Dynamics user group. It is free to join, and there are thousands of members, and there's a wealth of information out there to connect with other users, and it's free. It's free to join. It's free to throw questions out on the forum. Maybe you're struggling with something. Maybe you're looking for a solution that to meet a need that your business has. Maybe you're working with a partner and you have questions. This is for users, and so we highly encourage people to check it out, to join the forums. You can search for a particular topic. You can throw your questions out there. There are a lot of people who actively participate in answering. There are local meetups, this user group, all across the country, where people get together in person. Sometimes it's virtual. It really just depends. And you can talk to other users, meet other users. Maybe they've already gone through what you're going through. Maybe even outside of AppSource, anything that you're thinking about doing with your business with regards to the Microsoft product could be very useful information. And it's always nice. Sometimes the vendors are there. So it could be a vendor is going to go to one of these local chapter meetings, and you have the opportunity to get some free one-on-one support and conversation with the vendor that you're using. They have a huge webinar library, and I'm making a plug for the user group, but honestly, the reason is because this is your peers. This is not your partner trying to get you to use a particular thing on your own, where something might look great. Maybe one of the users has had experience with it. So this is really for your benefit. There are a lot of partners that support the user group for this very reason, because, from a partner's perspective, the more you can do on your own, the more information you can gather, that just makes our conversations more meaningful. YouTube, there are a ton of educational videos out on YouTube. We encourage you to check out. And then the conferences. So the user group conferences, in addition to the local chapters, there are typically annual conferences where lots of vendors go. It's designed for end users. There's lots of sessions available to you, and roundtables where you can have conversations with other end users, like-minded or not. So I will mention that Dynamics Con Live, which is their annual live event, is coming up in May. It's mid-May, and it's going to be held in Denver this year. We had it this past May in Arizona. And it's a great session. Lots of vendors are there, lots of end users are there, and some really good content. So I can highly recommend it. Innovia has a customer conference that is back-to-back with the user group conference. So gives us a chance to meet any of our customers or meet other people in the channel and hear what people are saying. We are always learning, just as you are. And I think that just about brings me to the end of my presentation. I don't know if anyone has any questions or if I'm turning it back over to you, the UST team.
I did have a question in there. When we're looking at different apps, is it better to consult a partner first before we find a myriad of apps that we want to use? Or, is that a waste of time? Or should we just go straight to the partner and then look at the apps?
I think it's a little bit of both. That's a great question. Sometimes some customers enjoy the search, enjoy the hunt for an app. Certainly, you can sometimes save time by coming to your partner and asking them. Also, again, leveraging the user group community, but the partner may be able to give you some advice, but and typically would have experience with specific vendors that we have worked with. So I'd say that could give you a good starting point, but still do your own homework.
And as far as reviews are concerned, when we're looking at apps on on AppSource and we're reading through the reviews, some of them say anonymous. Can anybody, post a review about an app, or like, for instance, can a vendor post their own review?
That's a great question. So vendors should not be able to post their own review. When you download the app into a production environment, then that gives you the ability to leave an app. So as an end user, as a customer, could a partner do that? Yes. Sometimes you can tell if the way it's written, but typically, it's not been my experience that happens a lot. But could I say never? No. Microsoft, somebody from Microsoft who has done testing, they certainly can. And other people who maybe had used the app, maybe they did like it, didn't like it. I'd kind of use those reviews. I'd say they're more qualified than like Amazon reviews. When you see like 50,000 on Amazon, and who knows if somebody who works there just went and left a whole bunch of reviews. I think these are vetted a little bit more carefully, but I don't think it's impossible that a vendor could put a review on there. Chances are they would only put a star rating and not a lot of comments.